So what is vertex form? Do you remember? Y equals A parentheses that's what vertex form is.
What does the H stand for?
H. That's the x value of your vertex, remember? I don't know what it officially stands for. It is a horizontal movement, so it might stand for horizontal.
Okay.
However, K is a vertical movement, and K and vertical don't go together, so I have no idea why it's H and K, but it is. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to give you either an XY table or a graph, and I want you to come up with the equation. Now, in order to write an equation in this vertex form, you need 3 pieces of information. You need to know what A is, you need to know what H is, and you need to know what K is. Once you know those 3 things, you just plug them in here and you've got your equation. All right? So, if you look at number 1, I don't have a picture, but what do you notice about the chart?
The two numbers are the same.
I'm recognizing this right here.
How the hell do you know that?
And I'm recognizing this right here.
Wow.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Which tells me what about this point right here?
Vertex.
That's my vertex. Because there's a mirror image around it, that's my vertex. Which tells me that my H value is 2 and my K value is 5.
Oh. That makes sense.
Okay? Just like we did yesterday where we would pull H and K out, we're putting it back in now. So, let's talk for a minute. Let me put this in. If I use this equation, I have Y equals A. I still don't know what A is. But then I can put X minus H. If H is a positive 2, what's it going to look like in the parentheses? Okay. And then, do I change the sign of K?
No.
So it would be plus 5.
Oh, that's it.
No, not it yet. But I'm well on my way, because what's the other thing I need to know? A. How do I find A? Well, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one of the other points. I'm going to use all sorts of different colors here today. I'm going to take any point from this chart, except the vertex. Don't pick the vertex, because vertex is just going to make it tricky. So pick another number or another point from your XY chart. I would pick one that has maybe small numbers that are easy to deal with.
111.
Okay, so I'm going to pick the 111. Good choice. 59, I don't really want to deal with 59. Okay, I'm going to pick 111. And if I pick the point 1, 11, isn't that an X value and a Y value?
Yeah.
So I'm going to plug in 11 for Y and 1 for X, and guess what? That's going to help me find A. So if I plug in 11 equals, I don't know what A is yet, but what am I going to put in for X? 1. I know it goes minus 2 squared plus 5. I'm going to find A here as I simplify this. So 11 equals A times what? 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Squared plus 5. What is negative 1 squared?
1.
So what's 1 times A?
1A.
I'm going to subtract 5. And what does A equal? 6. So now let's go back up here where I almost had my answer. And all I need to do is instead of A, I'm going to write what?
6.
So I'm actually going to use white out. And I'm going to say, all right, I've got the rest of my answer. My answer is A equals 6. So that's what my equation looks like.
That's your answer.
That's why it's boxed.
Oh my gosh.
Now, let's think about these points. Negative 159 is a really high point. And then you're coming down to 11, down to 5. So I have a parabola that's opening up, correct? if I think just in my head about where those points are, I have a parabola opening up. So does it make sense that my A value is positive? Mm-hmm. My A value is positive because if I were to plot those points, I have something opening up. Okay? All right, let's try number 2. Do we have that mirror image thing going on?
Yes.
Yay! That means I have what here?
Vertex.
Vertex. And I know that H is equal to
-2.
-2 and K is equal to -7. Remember, those are the 3 pieces of information you need in order to write an equation. So what do I do now that I know that H is -2 and K is -7? Plug it in.
Yes, ma'am.
A parentheses X. Let's see, this is a -2, so what's it going to look like in my parentheses?
2.
+2 squared, and then -7.
Yes.
And how am I going to find A?
You
Pick another point. I'm going to pick that one because I like the fact that there's a 0. 0 is easy. -27. By the way, it doesn't matter what point you pick, you'll still get the same A value, no matter which point you pick. Equals A parentheses, what do I plug in for X?
Negative,
0 plus 2 squared minus 7. All right. -27 equals A times 2 squared. What is 2 squared?
Oh, let's add it.
So I have 4A minus 7. What do I do from here? Add 7. So 4A is equal to -20. I'm running out of room.
You divide by 4.
So I'm going to give myself some more room here. I would divide both sides by 4. Only by 4 because you don't want to cancel out the A. You just want to cancel out the 4. And I get A equals what? -5. So I come up back here. I erase my A value. And what do I put? And that's my equation. So you will still have an X and a Y in your equation, but the A, H, and K all need to have values. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you should now be able to write an equation if I give you a table of values. Now let's look at a picture and write an equation. Okay. Again, I still need those same 3 things. I need A, I need H, and I need K. What's the easiest to find? H and K, because all you got to do is identify your vertex. Now my graph is a little fuzzy here, but I think yours is clear.
Yeah.
But if I put in my vertex there, what is that point? It's the point 1, 4. So what's H?
H is 1.
And what's K?
4.
4.
What do I know about the sign of A? It's a negative. How do I know that the sign of A is going to be negative?
Because it's a maximum.
Because it's opening down and it's a maximum. Yeah, that's how I know it's going to be negative. So what I'm going to do to find A is actually the same thing I did before. I'm going to find another point, not the vertex, another point on that parabola. Now that's the trickiest part. I have to find a point where the parabola crosses a grid line intersection. So I can't just pick some random point like here. I need to make sure that the parabola is intersecting at 2 grid lines also.
0, 1.
So for example, right here would be a good point to choose. Do you see the grid lines intersecting there?
Yes.
Or here? Or I think that's all I can see because it doesn't look like it makes it all the way to the grid line down here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick this point, 0, 1, because it's got nice small numbers. Yeah? Let's look. My equation would be y equals A parentheses X what? -1 squared plus 4. Hang on a sec. Okay. So what am I going to plug in for y?
1.
1 equals A parentheses
0.
0 minus 1 squared plus 4. So let's see. 1 equals A. What's 0 minus 1? Negative 1. What's negative 1 squared?
1.
So I'm going to have 1 equals 1A plus 4. So I'm going to subtract 4. And A equals negative 3. So I come back up here, erase my A value, or erase the letter A, and replace it with what?
Negative 3.
And there's my equation.
I have a question.
But we're not done yet.
Huh?
No, that's it.
No, I'm done. A is negative 3. Did I need to know before?
Identify the vertex.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I do need to identify the vertex. 1, 4.
I have a question.
The axis, just a second, of symmetry. What's the axis of symmetry here?
1.
X equals 1. And max min has a maximum value of what?
4.
Yes.
Negative 3. Oh, wait, it's 4. I'm sorry. Wait, why is it 4? I forgot.
Because
Because it's the y value of your vertex. Or in other words, your k value.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yes.
So you know how it says 1, 4 up there, right?
Right here.
Yeah. Didn't you go up 4 over 1? So wouldn't it be 4, 1?
It's always left to right and then up and down. It's always x comma y. You can go 4 up and over 1 if you want to, that's fine. But it's still the left to right movement has to be first in your parentheses. Yes?
So negative 4 over negative 3. Where'd you get the negative 3? The A.
she did A.
This is a subtraction problem. 1 minus 4
Yeah.
is negative 3.
Uh,
If I have $1 and I want to buy something that's $4, I'm $3 short.
that's a negative 4.
Okay? All right. So this one, I should be able to identify the vertex, axis of symmetry, all that good stuff,
Yes.
and the max min. So what is my vertex here?
Negative 2, negative 6.
Negative 2, negative 6. So I know that h is equal to negative 2 and k is equal to negative 6. What's my axis of symmetry?
X equals negative 2.
X equals negative 2. Does it have a maximum or a minimum?
A minimum.
And what is that minimum value?
Negative 6.
You guys are professionals here.
I know.
All right. So if I set up my equation, y equals a parentheses x what? Got to plug h in. It looks like a negative 2, so it's got to be a plus 2 here, squared. K I do not change the sign of, so I have minus 6. Now we need to find another point to use, and I have a few options. I see a point here,
On 0,
I see a point here, here, and here.
what do you 0?
Negative 5.
0, negative 2.
0, negative 2.
Negative 5.
That one looks pretty reasonable. Yeah? So let's plug that in. So negative 2 equals a parentheses 0 plus 2 squared minus 6. What is 0 plus 2?
2.
2 squared is? So I'm going to have negative 2 equals 4a minus 6. Now what do I do? Add 6.
6.
So what's negative 2 plus 6?
4 plus 4.
Equals 4a. Divide by 4. And a equals 1. So what does that mean? Well, when I erase the a,
So it's just going to be.
I could replace it with a 1. Or you can just leave it like that, because doesn't nothing there mean a 1? So you could put a 1 there if you want to, but we don't have to write a 1.
You did all that work just get the same answer.
It wasn't the same answer.
I know, but couldn't you have just left the A?
You want to do that every single time on the hopes that it happens to be an a value of 1? All right, I want you to try the last two here. You try it. Now, I tried to trick you a little bit with this one.
Why?
Because I can. That should be your vertex.
Oh, yes, I got it. What?
What's your axis of symmetry?
X equals 1.
Does it have a max or a min?
A minimum of 0.
Has a minimum of 0. You're right. So, let's see. H is equal to 1. K is equal to 0.
Point to write that out.
Okay. So that means my equation is going to be y equals a parentheses x minus 1 squared. Is there any point to writing plus 0?
No,
So guess what?
you don't need it.
You don't write it if it's a 0.
Oh, you
Would it be wrong if that's what we did?
Would it be wrong if you did? It would be...
It would be right, but...
It would be right, but it's the same idea as writing 1x as opposed to x. It doesn't look quite as...
Professional.
like you understand what you're doing. Okay, I need to find another point. I see a point right there. I think I'm going to use that one. Because I found one, I'm going to use it. That's the point 3, 2. So what would I plug in for y?
2.
Equals a parentheses 3 minus 1 squared.
Wait, which numbers did you use?
3, 2.
Why?
Because that's the easiest number.
Because I found it and I'm using it.
Wait, I don't see it. Oh, I see it. Never mind.
You could also use, it looks like 5, 8, or negative 1, 2,
Oh, I use negative 1.
or negative 3, 8. No matter which one you use, you should get the same a value I do. So, let's see. 2 is equal to a times 3 minus 1 is 2 squared. 2 equals what? 4a. Divide by 4. And what does a equal? Do not tell me it equals 2. It equals 1/2.
Wow.
Right? So I come back up here to my equation and I erase the a, and what do I put? 1/2.
Interesting. Y
Okay, so you don't need to have a k value. It could be 0. For those of you that really understand this stuff, I'll just let you know, if you do not have a k value, your vertex will be on the x-axis. Because there is no that's your y-intercept in a sense.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not your y-intercept. Your x-intercept in a sense.
For the next one, what we choose out?
Shh. Okay, next one. What is my vertex? 0, 4. Axis of symmetry? X equals 0. Does it have a max or a min? Has a maximum value of what? 4. Okay. So, my h value is what?
0.
My k value is 4. So that means when I go to write my equation, y equals a x minus 0 squared plus 4. Well, what is x minus 0 or plus 0? Isn't it just x? So I can actually write that better. I can just say y equals a x squared plus 4. I don't need parentheses at all if h is 0. Okay, so now let's go find a point to plug in. What looks like a good point? Oh, that looks like a good point to me. 2, 0. So what do I plug in for y? 0. equals a times 2 squared plus 4. So let's see, 0 equals 4a plus 4. What do I do? Subtract 4. So negative 4 equals 4a. Divide by 4, and what does a equal? Negative 1. So I come back up here, and what do I write? Do I write negative 1?
Yeah.
If I want to look like I really know what I'm talking about, do I write negative 1?
What else?
I just write
Negative. Oh.
a negative sign.
Wow.
So?
Homework.
Well, here's the deal. On the back of your notes, I have 2 more examples. They both have an a value of 1/2 because that was on your homework and some of you started freaking out as soon as there were fractions. Would you like me to do a graph or 2 with a 1/2 a value so you understand it? Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute. So, this one right here, what is my vertex?
Negative 4.
-4, 1. What's my axis of symmetry?
X equals negative 4.
So I'm going to go ahead and draw in my axis of symmetry as soon as I can find my highlight. Where did they all go? All right.
Again.
X equals -4 is right there. And there's my vertex. Yes? Yes?
Is drawing that in on the quiz a point?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Are you gonna make us highlight on the
And
quiz?
when we do the other quiz with
you make
the
us like
writing
highlighting?
equation,
You can either do that or just dot
do
line.
we have to put the h equals and the k equals and all of that for points?
No,
Okay.
probably not. Okay, so I'm going to make an XY chart. And my vertex goes right in the middle. Right? Yes? So now I need to get some values around. I want -5 and -6 in one direction, -3 and -2 in the other direction. And then I get my calculator to help me. So far the 1/2 has not done anything to me. The only time it's going to affect me is as I plug stuff in. So I can either use my fraction button and go 1/2 parentheses. I'll start off with -6 plus 4. Close my parentheses. Press my squared button, which is this x squared right there. And then plus 1. Or if I didn't want to use my fraction button, what could I use instead of 1/2? 0.5.
Can I go?
And I get a value of 3. Now, I don't want to retype that again, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to arrow back, and I'm just going to highlight that 6. Don't hit clear or delete or anything. Just highlight it and type in a 5, and it will replace it. And I get 1 and 1/2. I want to use that as a decimal in my chart because decimals make more sense when you're graphing. So I'm going to hit second, and then this PRB button because I'm trying to get up to where it says F arrow D. That right there means it's going to change my answer from a fraction to a decimal. It will also change a decimal answer to a fraction. It'll go back and forth. So I want that one, and I get 1.5. Now, because of that mirror image thing, I should know that I'm also going to get 1.5 here. Yeah? And 3 here. And you can always check that on your calculator pretty easy by going and changing those values. Yes?
Yeah.
So let's plot those. -6, 1, 2, 3. Keep in mind that every other line is representing 1, which is kind of nice because with the 0.5s, it's nice to have a line at a half. -5, 1.5 would be halfway between the 1 and 2 lines. -4, 1 is plotted. -3, 1.5, and then finally -2, 3. So that's what my graph should look like. Does it have a maximum or a minimum? Which one? Max or min? Minimum. If it has a bottommost point, it has a minimum. And what is that minimum value? 1 from my vertex. Okay? All right, I'm going to do one more with you because this one has a negative 1/2, just to make sure that you know what you're doing here. What is my vertex here? Anybody?
Negative 2, 3. I mean,
Negative
2, negative
2, negative 2. Yep. So my axis of symmetry is what?
X equals -2.
X equals -2. Max min,
It's a minimum. I mean, no. It's
I know
max.
the value of it is -2.
It's max.
If it's got a negative, that means it's going to be opening down, so it's going to have a max. So let me do my XY chart. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go draw in my axis of symmetry. I find -2 on my x-axis. And here's what I do. I'm going to put my vertex right in the middle here. And then I need numbers around it. So I want -3 and -4, as well as -1 and 0. Okay? So, this time instead of doing 1/2, I'm going to do -1/2. Keeping in mind, if you try and use the subtraction sign as a negative, your calculator is going to yell at you. You have to use the negative sign, which is down here by the decimal point. Okay? So there's -1/2, parentheses. I'll start off with -4. -4 plus 2 squared minus 2. That gives me -4. And then if I go back and I highlight that 4, I want to change it to a 3. I get a fraction, so what do? Second, to get to that FD thing, -2.5. Because that mirror image, what do I know is true? I know this one is also -2.5, and the other one is -4. Okay? So now all I got to do is plot my points and connect the dots. -4, -4, -3, -2.5, so halfway between -2 and -3. -2, -2, -1, -2.5, and 0, -4. So when I give you an A value of 1/2, I will also give you this grid that has that half, where the grid lines actually are on 1/2 also, because I think it's easier to plot the points when it's an actual grid line there.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So hopefully that helped refresh your memory of what to do with the 1/2. Happy studying!